Well,
Happy
we're
New
waiting.
Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Or Merry Christmas. I don't know, because this video is coming out. So we're recording this on the 21st, but it's coming out on the 28th. So technically it's in that weird like middle ground between Christmas and then the start of next year. So I don't really know what to say to this one. I remember last year for the intro, and I just didn't want to reuse the exact same thing. I put the clip from Trading Places of Eddie Murphy, Merry New Year, when he's in the train. By the way, Trading Places, great movie. But yeah, it's time.
Yeah, well, this in particular is our year end video review. So
You never know how these can go. I feel like because it's our end of year special, but it's also like we're giving out like awards. Not that any of these fighters give a shit what me and you think, but it's
well, there,
it's also like I feel like we should have like special music for this or something, like the Emmys or the Grammys or something like that. But I don't know, like what could we possibly use? That's the
your
thing.
guitar.
Next year I'll come up with a song, so I have a year to come up with something now. God, that'll be interesting. Well, stay tuned for that. And we'll see you next. That's the end of the show. No, but so we have a bunch of awards coming, and oh my God, like we could really start anywhere. But just to tell you guys what we're going to be showing beforehand, we have Breakout Fighter of the Year, UFC Rookie of the Year, Finish of the Year, Event of the Year, our favorite memories of 2025, of course, just to break it up a little bit, and then Fight of the Year, and then we'll end it with a conversation about Fighter of the Year, which very curious what you guys think about that. So once you hear what we have to say near the end of the video, leave a comment and who's your Fighter of the Year. But I think we should just hop into the awards and start off with Breakout Fighter of the Year. And I guess I'll go first for this one. Um, for me, like, there's a lot of different fighters you can kind of choose for an award like this. And to be clear, Breakout Fighter of the Year for us is like, it's not someone who's debuted in 2025. It's someone who's been in the promotion and has had just results that I guess have heavily impacted their future and really has kind of like broken them through a glass ceiling, so to speak. And for me, there's a lot of people who you could have chosen, but my mind just kept going back to one person, and that was Michael Morales. And it's crazy that he's so young, and he's been in the UFC since 2021. So we're already in the fourth year, going on fifth of his UFC career, and it's crazy. Like now he's in really the top echelon at welterweight. He's already beaten Gilbert Burns, Sean Brady, finished both of them obnoxiously, and he started the year off as like a highly touted prospect. I think a lot of hardcore fans knew who he was, but a lot of casuals probably didn't. And then, having the year that he's had, he's launched himself from just a prospect to literally arguably the top contender in one of the most stacked weight classes in the sport. So that's personally why I pick him as breakout fighter of the year. I just see like a guy who started at one place, that think of any other sport like prospects who you're waiting to kind of make that next step. I feel like Michael Morales took that next step in 2025, and I'm excited to see what happens with him in 2026. So that's my pick for fighter of the year. I don't know if you have anything on that as well, or if you want to like get into yours, but we could talk about the picks as much as we want, or we could just kind of move through them.
No, I just went with I took a like way different approach to this pick and who it should be because it's not it's not somebody that it's not somebody that broke out per se. Like you all already knew who this was well before this year, and
I still
it's
like the
just
pick though, and like I want you to explain why you picked her because it
yeah.
makes sense.
I try to
Spoiler
there's like
alert.
it's like a 3D chess kind of move with this pick because I think the criteria still stands where there was kind of a glass ceiling over her. Yes, her. It's a girl first of all, and I think this was the year that she really needed to show that undisputed that she is an all time. We knew she was a all time great, but when it comes to women's MMA as a whole, she she by the end of her career, she could very well go down as the all-time great in the one and only Valentina Shevchenko as my breakout fighter of the year with two more title defenses this year. Uh, over Manon Fiorot for one, which Manon Fiorot in herself I still believe in quite a bit. And that was a, I mean that was an imposing matchup in itself for Valentina. Um, just someone that's just you would say even bigger than Valentina Shevchenko was, and Manon the hands are may not all be all the way there yet, but she put up a good showing in that fight. And I think just I think just Valentina just really understands in her head that even though she is the champ and she is as successful as she's been over her UFC career, that any given opponent, any given fight, she can be the one on the losing end, and it's very just. I was gonna say this for I was gonna say it for them, but it's just very GSP like for me. Like I feel very comfortable in just saying she's the GSP of women's MMA, and she's gonna go out on top just like he did. And I'm very excited to. It's more as also these picks are kind of made with this pick and the rookie of the year pick are kind of made with eye towards the future. Like how can you expect their 2026 to turn out? And I think Valentina Shevchenko is just going to continue to hold on to her title, and I mean she might just run out of contenders by the end of next year entirely. So
They keep coming at flyweight though. They're just always is a new crop coming
and
up, and she's beating all of them.
yeah, she beats all. So while you're waiting for when you're waiting for an actual breakout fighter in the women's flyweight division to
Aaron Blanchfield putting my
she's
money
on her way. Yeah, she's on her way. We'll see in 2026. But while you're waiting for that to happen, like Valentina is, I think and here's why I would say breakout fighter, because it wasn't I didn't hear I am still not hear even after the Zhang Wei Li fight, just not enough praise. The fact that for one the Zhang Wei Li fight did finally happen, was just looked at as a super fight for however long, and it almost felt like it just came and went, and Valentina dominated all 5 rounds on each facet of MMA, on the feet, on the ground, all of it. I mean, I just think her top control, just a half guard, a crucifix, whatever position she's in on the ground, she's gonna find a way to make them. She's gonna find a way to score some points from it, and it's gonna help her case very well at the end. But yeah, even after that fight, I wasn't really seeing much praise for her to say like this could be the greatest female mixed martial artist of all time, and I just think now like it's really not as much of a debate as it might have once been. So obviously Amanda Nunes is coming back, and she's gonna fight for the bantamweight belt, and we're gonna see how that goes. But right here, right now, the end of the year, I think Valentina Shevchenko has finally broken that glass ceiling above her as to whether or not she's the greatest mixed martial artist for women of all time, and I'm very comfortable.
For me, like, that. I also think that part of it, at least like when I first read it on the outline this morning, like one of my thoughts too is just the fact that, because you kind of alluded to it earlier too, she's taken some losses in recent years. So like Valentina was so dominant for so long, and then after those losses, there were like a lot of questions. And I feel like the way I interpreted it, in 2025, she answered all those questions and showed people that she still is the top of the crop at 125 and could be for a while. I agree with you. I think she will be for a while. And I think she deserves a lot of people's respects. And I'll call out the haters for you too, because the haters are just mad. It's the same people who are calling out Islam Makhachev, Hamzat Chimaev. They just don't want to see someone grapple and dominate a fight. But sorry to say, it's mixed martial arts. That's going to happen once in a while. And nobody deserves to be punished for dominating 25 full minutes. And I personally think that's why Valentina isn't getting the credit, even though
I'm
I think she
saying,
deserves
dude,
it.
just male or female. She's one of the greatest mixed
Yeah.
martial arts that will ever step inside of a UFC octagon. So that's also one into why I made this pick. And so for everyone they're like, oh,
You
of
can't pick a
of all
champion for
yeah
Breakout Fighter.
of all
Then
ways you
start
could
your
have
own
went with this
podcast.
pick.
Tell us why we're wrong.
Yeah. I'm bringing the flavor. I'm bringing the spice to these picks. I wanted it to be a little bit more unexpected this year and a lot more conversation, discourse, whatever it might be to be had around this conversation. So I simply made it as like, hey, women's MMA was, if going into this year, women's MMA was seriously on just like a decline, a downward slope in terms of fan interest and just marquee matchups and just not enough true needle movers to make fights for, super fights for. Um, like I said, so for one, I mean you got one of those super fights with between Zhang Weili and Valentina, and she dominated the whole entire way through. And so that's why. And then okay, of course after the fight, depending on how the fight goes, like if it's a boring slog of a fight, because I didn't think that's what that fight was anyways between Zhang and Valentina Shevchenko, but for those. That's just generally how it goes. Like no matter what the stakes are going into a fight, and how anticipated the fans might be for it, if it doesn't deliver for 5 minutes straight, then or end in a wild finish, then it just doesn't really get talked about all that much afterwards at all. And I still think like the stakes are still there. Um, the we can call it
Well, it's like
legacy.
Monday morning quarterbacking. It's like you're gonna be mad because the fight didn't play out the way you thought it was gonna play out. Like, sorry, it wasn't the most entertaining fight of all time. They're not all gonna be. I'm not saying that to you. I'm saying that to the people like who you're talking about because whether you thought it was a boring fight or not, she dominated her for 25 minutes. It's like you're gonna take away credit for that because you didn't enjoy watching it.
Yeah,
Tough. Like watch boxing. Like
yeah,
I can't. It bothers me. That's why I mentioned those other two fighters before, and Hamzat and Islam Makhachev. It's like if you aren't willing to watch a 25-minute domination on the ground, MMA just isn't the sport for you. Like they're not all going to be like that, but they're not all going to be good either. So it's just you can't just pick and choose which performances are super impressive just by how exciting the end of it is. You know what I mean? Like that's just how I view it. And maybe I'm a purist. Because I like watching the fights as a whole. I don't care if there's a finish in the first round or if there's a decision. Like, yeah, of course I'm a fan. Like, I love seeing knockouts and submissions, but like, I also like learning about a fighter through 25 minutes. You learn a lot about a fighter when you watch them in a 5 round fight. There's certain people who can't hang in a 5 round fight. And Valentina Shevchenko has showed year after year, and especially this year after so many doubts, that she's still up there with the best in this, in really her whole field of women's MMA, kind of like you were saying. I was about to say her weight class, but I don't even, I think
yeah.
that's
I mean,
obvious.
field women's MMA, just MMA in general. Like, just she's got the complete package. It's just the think that just every time she goes in there, even if she doesn't have the belt and she's fighting to get it back, she's kind of staring down, right right down the barrel of whoever her opponent is, and she's looking to just press forward on her front foot, and uh, she's gonna look to get you up against the fence, and then clinch, make it all uncomfortable for you, and close the distance, reduce her opponent's range, and she'll make it. She'll make it dirty. She'll make it just a bloodbath if she has to, I believe. So, but I mean, the Manon, she busted up Manon Ferro pretty well. That's how that went.
We
But
watched that fight on a giant screen, if you
oh
remember.
yeah,
A
yeah,
giant
in a
screen.
very loud place.
Yeah.
Uh, but
But you could see the blood is kind of my point. Like, that was, her head was big on that screen, dude. Took up the
yeah,
whole wall.
yeah. So that happens to her opponents way more than it happens to Valentina, and that's another aspect that just puts her in a whole different level. Just so pretty much like when you separate yourself from all of your peers in the women's division, like in the women's division of MMA like that, the UFC, then you're an absolute. In which case, going into this year, a lot of people were just, who could have really finally foreseen that Zhang Weili was gonna finally make the move and fight Valentina, and yeah, so that was just that's all I needed to see, those 5 rounds of that fight, Valentina lasting every single one in dominant fashion. And yeah, she's finally up there. She's just up there, all as one of the all-time greats. Hopefully she'll keep moving. Like hopefully UFC has a lot in store for her the next year, and she'll just keep moving forward. And then she's gonna she'll retire probably the greatest female mixed martial arts of all time. So
Nah, Amanda Nunes always. She beat her twice. It's just true. I can't say she's the best one if someone's out there who beat her twice. She beat her once, maybe, but she beat her twice.
well, there's gonna be
Close fights though.
there's gonna be those people anyway. So
I would
all
love
right.
to see them fight again at some point.
If it's you, like please comment. You're allowed to flame me, whatever you want. We don't take offense here. We welcome all of it, and yeah. So
I just hope they're
if
nice.
there's any
they're not
objection
nice
with
as
it
me.
being a champion or female, any of that, then hey,
I like
let's
that
talk
you picked the
about it.
champion. I like that you picked the champion, and I like the champion that you picked because like I said, the way that I took it, like when I read it, like I said, I saw someone who's had an up and down recent history, and then this year got back to that form.
You put it in a pretty nice bow. Like whatever questions that were had going into the year, if you answered it, then you were a pick for like all these picks. So even for rookie of the year and fight of the year or a finish of the year, if you were, that's pretty much how that goes. If there was questions, like if there's a narrative essentially to be followed, then you would probably make a good pick for these picks. So
yeah, we were talking before the show. Like last year, a lot of these picks were a lot more cut and dry. This year, you could really debate them. That's why we're like curious what you guys think
It's especially debatable this year.
Let's move on to rookie of the year, and for mine is the man, the myth, the legend. The middleweight Francis Ngannou, scary knockout power.
Oh.
Teba Gautier, man.
Middleweight Ngannou.
Yeah, I've heard people calling it. There's people.
Oh, you've heard people.
The streets
okay.
say that's middleweight Ngannou.
Self-proclaimed right there.
No, that's
your boy Ron.
That's not me. That's the streets. But seriously, man, scary knockout power. Went 3-0 in 2025. I just expect a big 2026 for him as well. It's crazy that in just 1 year in the UFC, he's made the most of it, and now he's going to be on the prelims of the first Paramount card. Huge spot for him. Some would say, "Oh, well, he's not on the main card. How big of a spot could it be?" But people got to remember that's the first event that's going to be on that platform. People are going to be watching from the first fight to the end. So he already made a huge statement in 2025, multiple knockout wins. Now he has a chance to start 2026 on a huge victory on a huge card and could get a huge victory. So I'm intrigued by him. I really hope that next year is going to be even crazier because this is a dude I really feel like could be a star. And we haven't seen him tested yet, but again, this isn't breakout fighter of the year. These are people who are rookies. Their debut is in 2025. So like I feel like for what we saw in his first year, the potential is through the roof if this dude can keep knocking out guys like he's been doing it. But we'll have to see how he continues through the ranks because he's still early, but all these rookies are early in their careers. So I'm curious to see where he'll end up. I don't know, like because middleweight's a tough weight class. You know what I mean? Like there's especially at the top, there's a lot of good strikers up there nowadays, and now there's honestly a few good grapplers as well. Obviously, not talking about just the champion, but you got guys like Fluffy Hernandez too.
Look, it's interesting you say that there's a few good strikers, but there isn't really not really since Alex Pereira was still in the division that there's somebody who really has that one punch knockout blow to them.
That's what I'm saying, man. He's
And
got
that's
a lot of
yeah.
hype behind him, and if he can keep knocking people out like this, I mean, dude, sky's the limit. And at middleweight,
They're
there's so many
all
big fights.
the guys at the top in terms of striking are very crafty and methodical, technical. They draw out their striking maneuvers and their combos, and they're very there's no wasted movement in that sense for the most part. Well, you know, there are a handful of guys that kind of just will stare you down, and you kind of just kind of are willing to draw the fight out, and um, you just get a read on who they're fighting. But yeah, I think he'll bring a real nice flavor to the rankings when he's in there. So
He's interesting, and the reason why I think he's so dangerous is because you mentioned how crafty some of the strikers are the further you move up in the middleweight ranks. But the thing is with Gautier, and it reminds me of Ngannou, it doesn't really matter how crafty you are if you get hit and your lights get shut out.
yeah,
It
that's what I'm
takes one
saying.
shot with a
That's
guy
what I'm
like this.
saying. So that now that's being brought to the middleweight division.
It's exciting.
It's
Like,
exciting. Yeah, he could move his way up very fast. To be honest, like not
well,
even
Ngannou kind of did. Like I remember when Ngannou fought Alistair Overeem, and that was a lot of the conversation back then. Was like, oh, Overeem's a very crafty striker. I don't know if Ngannou's going to be able to touch this guy. And then you look at what happened in that fight. Francis Ngannou hit him so hard that the back of Alistair's head almost touched his back after that uppercut. So I just can't wait. And I mentioned before how like I'm a fan of the sport. I like watching people go 25 minutes, but I said I also like watching finishes. This dude is a finisher. If you like watching people get separated from consciousness, watch this dude fight on the first card of 2026 because it's a good chance you're going to see something crazy. And I think that the UFC knows that, and I think that's why they're putting him in a spot like that. So, like I said, 3-0 in 2025. I think that this is a big prospect, and I think that people should keep their eye out for him. But let's get into your rookie of the year. So
yeah. So guys, this isn't news to anybody anymore, but the UFC lightweight champion of the world is gonna be taking some time, at least in the first 3 to 4 months of the upcoming year, which just is unfortunate in its own right. I hope it's not to say it's gonna last past that, but who knows how much that this could drag on for. And
yeah, especially like legal,
pretty
personal.
big deal.
That's
Yeah, like,
sucks
so
for him.
it's yeah. I feel bad, but he's got that bloodline there, that Taporia bloodline there. He's got it's running pretty well right now between obviously Ilya's greatness and now
So your pick is
my
Ethan
pick.
Ewing? I had to. After all that. My bad. I stomped all over that. Sometimes I can't help myself.
We picked the whitest guy possible. Talking about it,
Talking about Ethan Ewing. That's who we're picking.
Yeah. Mr. Alexandre Taporia here. I'm kind of fascinated by, like, not because of his last name, obviously, but he's obviously there's gonna be similarities to his brother, even just their stance and just kind of their frame as well. They're quite similar, and obviously Ilya separates himself in just the terms of, well, one, the experience, but I mean Ilya's even bigger. His base is that much better. The guy, he can throw people, but from what I'm seeing here from Alexandre is someone who possesses the kind of knockout power that Ilya Tapora has. At least I believe. Like, so he went 2-0 this year, 2 unanimous decisions, and I just think I think the right hand is there already. I think he's just more or less finding a way to set it up, because I think opponents are going to be more weary of it, obviously, and they're not going to get caught by it. But I was watching his. It was it was a Perth card. He was fighting the Australian Colby Thickenese.
Yeah, I remember that fight.
and just his ability to cut off the cage, um, take control of the center, and um, just kind of like Ilya does as well. It's already there, and I think the guy does possess the strength, but um, obviously the competition's only gonna get stiffer and stiffer. So, um, I think just pretty much I kind of see a guy who is going to look to he's going to look to finish fights, but I think he's got the ability to still put together enough on the ground and on the feet throughout the entirety of 3 rounds, to where he'll be able to continue to just rack up unanimous decision wins anyways, and I think that's pretty encouraging. When you're talking about a rookie of the year, obviously we want the flash, the excitement, and I think the knockouts will start coming for this guy because the right hand's already there. Like what I was saying about the Thickanies fight, I mean he bombed an overhand on this guy, and he dropped him and kind of just took control of the whole fight from there, and that's kind of how you do it. And we'll see if that translates to finishes. I think it will, but
I think that comfort in the UFC will set in too, because you also probably you think about like those are his first few fights in the promotion. You drop a guy, you don't want to overdo it and then gas out, then you lose, and
yeah,
with that name
yeah,
comes pressure
he's
too.
got him. He's got strength, kind of like his brothers won't. In which case, like he can take um, the control of you, whether it's on the ground or in the clinch. Whether it's getting your back, like he can get guys down by just sheer power and strength, just wrestling pretty much. So, um, it's a very small sample size. Don't get me wrong, it's a very small sample size, but in the sample, there's a lot to be excited about, and
Well, that's the
we
point of the
we're gonna
award.
need yeah, we're gonna need to pour. I'm hoping he gets a fight or two, in this time that his brother is not gonna be defending his title. So, we're gonna need it to pour to hold it down for the first 3 or 4 months of the year, and here's where Alexandria steps in, and I just think the whole year as a whole is going to be pretty exciting for the Taporia family. So
Should be interesting. Like you said, 2-0 in 2025. So a lot of good momentum going forward. Just a lot of pressure too with that last name, that's for sure. But you were talking about how he won his fights via unanimous decision. Now we got to start talking about some finishes. So my finish of the year, one of the ultimate highlights coming out of the pay-per-views for the UFC this year, and for me, it was Lerone Murphy knocking out Aaron Pico at UFC 319. Absolutely insane spinning back elbow. Just everything about this is just spectacular to me. Like just when you want to focus in on the fight itself, you got Aaron Pico coming forward, landing shots, and then out of nowhere, Lerone lands that elbow and separates Pico from consciousness. But then even when you broaden the scope, just the amount of pressure coming in, for both fighters, don't get me wrong, Pico obviously had a lot of pressure coming in from Bellator with all that hype. And Lerone Murphy, though, he kind of has a bad position because he's near the top of the rankings at featherweight, and he's risking it all by taking this fight. So, what happens to Lerone Murphy if he loses? It already took so long for him to get up to this spot as it is, and then he fights Aaron Pico, and this was quite literally the best possible outcome for him to get a highlight reel finish like that. It's a shame that that doesn't get him a title fight in today's day and age with the matchmaking, which is lunacy. Just want to say that.
yeah,
But, Lerone Murphy still did everything he needed to do, and it's not his fault that the UFC doesn't see a future champion in this guy because Diego Lopez is a really awesome fighter, don't get me wrong, but Lerone Murphy deserved that title shot, and it's a shame that he's not getting it, especially after what I consider to be the finish of the year over Aaron Pico, who, some people are going to call Bellator PFL can, but I'm not. So like I said, so much pressure going into that fight, and I think that Lerone doing something that crazy was just it was outstanding. Like I remember watching it and just feeling just absolute shock that that actually happened. So yeah, that's my pick for it. I think the stakes of it really mattered, and then just the highlight itself. in terms of MMA, it doesn't really get much crazier than a spinning back elbow. So, and we got a few of those this year now that I think about it. And so there were a lot of these that I could have chose from, but this situation was really the one for me that stuck out just because, like I said, there was a lot of pressure going into this fight for both guys, and one man walked out of there heavily victorious. So, yeah, that's where I choose to go with it.
All right, boxing fans, come on out, come on out. It's our time now. For this
But Tiz,
part
they
of the
hate
show.
us. They hate us. We're the dumb MMA guys. We can't talk about boxing. We're just those dumb meathead MMA fans, man.
Dumb meathead MMA fans.
We just want to share the love.
We should go pick some weak freaking knockout.
Probably gonna be some sort of Jake Paul fight.
Some Jake Paul fight, exactly. Anthony Joshua.
Honestly, I might change my
Anthony
knockout of the year.
Joshua.
My knockout of the year.
Hell yeah,
Sorry,
Anthony
Leroy
Joshua.
Murphy.
Congrats, man.
Yeah.
Stop Jake Paul, so he wins.
That shot of Jake's face right before Anthony hit him, just to and then Anthony Joshua just I mean, that's the question that we're going on a bit of a tangent here, I guess, but I think it's
Hey,
I think it's worth
no,
doing.
it's okay because while Anthony Joshua's greatness as a heavyweight is what it is, and that's great and all, let's talk about the actual great at heavyweight boxing.
Jake Paul. No, but I have a genuine question for you. So, like, I feel like the question that everybody gets asked as a kid growing up is like, would you take $100 million to get knocked out by the heavyweight champ? And I get that Anthony Joshua isn't exactly at his peak anymore, but he was still a champion level heavyweight boxer. And Jake Paul went in there and fought him, for better or for worse, for his sake. But, like, that was the question, right? If someone gave you $100 million, would you fight the heavyweight champion? And to Jake's credit, he said yeah. And he paid the price, that's for sure, getting his jaw broken in spectacular fashion.
Yeah.
That's really...
if that's what it takes for that kind of money, then
I mean, that's what I'm saying. But you asked the question, would you do it? I mean, now you've seen it done.
Surgery on my jaw that you can.
Well, to be fair, I'm not going to be fighting Anthony Joshua. Jake Paul is much bigger than both of us. Maybe we could fight like Terrence Crawford or maybe Inoue. So the result would be the same.
I think
it'd be at our scale.
I think that would be even. Those guys would just straight style with combos on combos on combos. It would be. I think with Jake Paul, I mean, the guy just is. I mean, it wasn't a fair fight to begin with. So like, I mean, that's kind of how it goes. So
I'm gonna be so sad in like 2035 when I'm just reminiscing on the days of 2025, and I'm gonna see that we talked about Jake Paul for more than 2 minutes in our end of year special. Oh God, man! No, I mean, you know me. I'm not a Jake Paul hater or anything like that, but it's nice to see people who are casuals who thought that he was like the next Canelo finally a little bit silent after this one. That's for sure. They finally saw him fight a real boxer.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. So, I mean, and again, like, I still give him credit for even stepping in there. I don't think he deserves as much credit as people are giving him for lasting as long as he did because, I mean, he didn't exactly fight him. He was basically trying to grapple him and run away. But, I wouldn't want to get in there with Anthony Joshua. So I still give him respect for that. Like I said, he answered that age-old question of, would you do that for $100 million, step in there with the heavyweight champ? And he did. And got knocked out and got his jaw broken. So, honestly, though, I mean, best wishes to him. Hope he heals up soon. That's a rough injury. So, we'll see what happens with him in the future and with Joshua. Because Joshua, I mean, they're talking about maybe him versus Tyson Fury. That's like the fight that everybody's been talking about for years now. And I think no matter where either of them are at in their careers, I still would like to see it personally.
Yeah,
as a fan of both of them.
Pretty cool. That can happen.
But then there is a guy though.
Anyways,
get back to it.
Yeah. So, while we're on the topic,
this
heavyweight
is perfect
champions, we can gladly talk.
See, we talked about Jake Paul for a reason. It all comes full circle.
Yeah, I mean, if this guy fought Jake Paul, I mean, Jake Paul would have more than just a broken jaw, I'm sure. But this guy, the actual heavyweight champ right now, all time great. Wherever he winds up being on anyone's list by the time he's retired, um, I reckon it's gonna be very high as it should because now I think his legacy is more than stamped. Um, there's not even that much left to prove. There's not that much left people opponents to fight. He's gone to hell and back get to get to this point now, pretty much where he is, and have his year go the way it did. And yeah, just hell yeah for Alexander Usyk, man. Just putting all that whatever. So kind of the same thing with the Shevchenko conversation. If there's whatever questions, whatever doubts you had for an already great fighter coming into the year, then what makes them great? Well, they're gonna go and put that discourse to rest. Any debate, any controversy, they're gonna deliver the only way they know how inside of the on that canvas. And that's what Usyk did here with his Daniel Dubois rematch, stopping him in round five. Just an absolute awesome display. I mean, even the first four rounds, he was winning comfortably. Um, and it just seemed like there was just no way like he was gonna let up the gas pedal for a second. Uh, just that's just a huge credit to Dubois as well. Um, for that first fight to go the way it went, just actually so annoying. I can't even feel. Imagine how it must have felt for Usyk himself. Like now he's got that looming over him. Um,
Well, that was
now
like the
it's
big
like
selling point of this fight. Was that a body
it
shot or was
was,
that a
yeah,
low
it was
blow?
the
And
big selling fight. The big selling point of this fight. So much so that you could, if you wanted to do a drinking game, during the fight with the commentary, of how many times that they would bring up that low blow, um, then that probably would have been pretty fun. But hey, Usyk put an end to it really very quickly. So I think the guy's just an absolute warrior. I mean, just to do it after the two Tyson Fury fights, um, he knew that there was another rematch that needed to be settled, and to just officially uh, prove his claim as the true undisputed heavyweight champion of the world, number one pound for pound fighter in the world. Now that Terrence Crawford's retired, if we're being totally honest, and this was the year for it to happen. It only took inside 5 rounds. To Daniel Dubois is an absolute just world class display of heavyweight boxing. Heavyweight boxing, which everyone tunes in for. Whenever anyone you hear a heavyweight boxing fight, it doesn't matter from the most clueless casual to the most diehard boxing fan. Everyone's eyes are gonna be glued to the screen, and Usyk just delivers on all fronts each time as well. Just there's even with people who are like Usyk fights for points, whatever it might be. Like you got nothing to say now. You got nothing to say now about this guy. And I think he understands that. Everyone understands that, and just wherever the rest of his career will take him. Uh, and there ain't nothing left to prove for the guy, pretty much.
I was thinking this as you were as you were saying about like talking about the casuals, how they can't really say anything about him anymore. It's funny, or not even that, but also how the casuals they always like anybody hears heavyweight title fight for boxing, they're all in. Me personally, like when I talk to people who are casual fans, the way that I kind of gauge who's really popular is by who they mentioned to me in the first place. And like to be honest, that's how I found out that Marab was actually a huge star in the UFC to even the casuals. Like I had people hitting me up about like when he fought O'Malley the second time, when he fought Jan, when he fought Umar, and like that's
Yeah, that's pretty
it's crazy
cool.
that all these fights are within a year.
Yeah,
But even besides that though, like I said with the casuals, though, like when they're talking about those type of guys, that's how I know that like they're a big star. And I never thought that Marav was gonna be on that level, even when he was champion. But then, you fight that many times in a year and you do crazy stuff like he does. That's usually the case. But heavyweight boxing, back to the main point, you don't really need any antics to get people excited about two big dudes standing and trading with each other. And especially in the last like 10 years or so, we've really had a lot of great heavyweight title fights, whether it be the Fury Wilder trilogy. Even if you want to go further back than that, I remember when Anthony Joshua fought Vladimir Klitschko. That was a crazy fight. And then even Usyk versus Fury, those fights were insane.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's in a good spot, and I'm curious like what'll happen from here, because it seems like Usyk, he's kind of on his way out in a sense, not in terms of skill, but it's just
Yeah.
like, who else do you give him? Like, there's no
Exactly.
appetite, and he's not really hungry to fight anyone either, because it's like he has nothing to prove. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. But like you said, he kind of shut up all the doubters in this one. So definitely a valid finish of the year. And moving on to event of the year, I want to start this one kind of by talking about like my thought process in picking this. So, you know, we were messing around just before. Yeah, we focus on MMA, but like we are a combat sports show in totality. But more as I'm more fixated on MMA, I was my first thoughts of event of the year. I'm like, okay, well, what UFC pay per views happened this year, and I'm going through each one, and none of them really felt massive this year. And the reasoning behind that could be a lot of things, but I'm not even trying to get into that right now. But because of that, I was like, well, I don't know if I could really pick one of these for event of the year. Nothing really stuck out to me that much. And so I kind of broadened the scope a little bit, and I think we both did, honestly. But for my event, I looked towards boxing, and when I looked towards boxing, it was obvious to me that the event of the year should be Canelo versus Crawford. And you don't get super fights quite like that one very often, and that's like a once in a decade type of super fight. You got Terrence Crawford, already an undefeated top pound for pound champion, goes up 2 weight classes to fight Canelo, who's the big money fight in boxing, already a legend, champion in his own right. And then Crawford does the unthinkable and actually outboxes Canelo, again, 2 weight classes up from where he's fought heaviest. And the whole event just felt massive. Like, there were a lot of celebrities there for people who care about that stuff, the casuals, I guess. But like, Netflix did a good job at making that feel like it was as huge of a fight as it is. And I guess, Turkey Al Sheikh deserves a lot of credit for that. Dana White deserves some credit for that. But even besides that, like I said, Netflix did a good job at the event too. This is a personal one for me. I'm glad that I got to see two members of Tool during the walkouts. That was kind of cool. Dude, you know what's funny? I was playing my acoustic guitar, and I learned. So I should maybe go back a little bit. I'm gonna go on a tangent here, but I kind of want to. So me and Brooke sometimes like we'll talk about the guitar progress, and he was like, "Oh, well, next time Pat has a bonfire when it gets warmer out, because we're in New Jersey, so it's like 9 degrees right now." I was about to say -90, but that more like Minnesota. We're in New Jersey, but when it gets warmer out, he was like, "Oh, you should bring your guitar, your acoustic guitar, and play some tunes, some peaceful stuff." And so I took that as a personal challenge to learn as many like hard rock and metal songs on acoustic as I can to throw everybody off. And one of the ones that I'm proud that I figured out is Stinkfist by Tool. So I don't know, maybe I'll perform it at the end of the video or something. Only for the YouTube audience though. Spotify and Apple Podcasts, they're just gonna have to come to YouTube. Sorry, but that's if who knows if that'll happen. But anyway, I thought that was kind of cool to have Danny Carey and Adam Jones from Tool playing during the walkouts. But for the fight itself, I mean, like I said, the expectations were absolutely insane going in, and Canelo's legacy wasn't on the line as much as I think Crawford's was, because Canelo's had a lot of big fights versus top level opponents. He's won some of them and lost some of them, and it doesn't seem like his fan base really cares what happens with him at this point. Well, like they want him to win, but it's like they're still behind him whether he wins or loses, is my point. Terrence Crawford, he up to that point he had really only fought Errol Spence and dominated him, but everybody was like, well, when is he going to get truly tested? And everybody agrees that Canelo's a legend. So Crawford goes up there and then does that. versus Canelo, I mean, that's gigantic. And people were talking about it for so long afterwards. People are still talking about it now because Crawford just retired. And it makes you think about just how awesome that was to watch live. And for me, that was event of the year because I was truly drawn in. I was thinking about it all week, which I really don't think I did for any UFC pay per view this year. I think that Canelo versus Crawford was the only event that I was thinking about it for such a long time before it happened. And then when it did, I felt like it really did pay off in the end with what was the result of it. So that's where I went with it. So shout out to Netflix because that they're pretty early on in their live sports broadcasts. So for them to put on that cool show, shout out to them.
Yeah. So, anyways, I went with the little bias pick, the little shameless plug going on here. Look, we went to you see it right there. Just a little press pass. We went to BK. We went to BKFC show in the Prudential Center. Um, they had obviously the chairman with David Feldman holding it all, and Conor McGregor's role in the promotion, and the event itself with the two fighters in the main event, former from former UFC fighters as well, and you just take two guys who were have no problem getting hit in the head just a little more and doing it back. Two guys who will never shy away from that, just straight savages. But Mike Perry and Jeremy Stevens, I think, you know, shit. Like you hear those two names in a straight bare knuckle boxing fight, like that's gonna draw attention either way. And we got to actually go and see it in person. Uh, we got the whole, we can, Rob got the media pass and got to live out a pretty cool thing. Obviously one of the main goals for our channel and our brand when we started it, and so for it to all come to fruition and all the people we met and all the footage we got and the fights we got to see in person, it was a standout event. I think BKFC does a pretty good job with um, their promotion. They're very into it, like everybody they have working there and stuff. Um, Obviously, and those fighters themselves, you gotta be one batshit motherfucker to go into the BKFC ring and throw bare hands with another person trying to knock you out. So, those are some pretty world class, awesome performers and fighters there. And it was awesome. I wish me and Jimmy got to sit a little closer so we could really like see this just pure freaking violence for what it really is. Because it's eye opening as it is in a live setting.
Takes a
So
lot of grit to fight
yeah,
in bare knuckle, that's for sure.
yeah,
BKFC 82 was a nutty event, and like we've talked about it a lot on the show and off the show, but like they do really put on a great event. And the thing with them too is like they're not trying to just copy the UFC, they're also not trying too hard to be super different because they know the sport is a different thing. So like part of it for me, like they had, we watched the King of Violence and the Queen of Violence belts. I love that. Like that's exactly what a promotion like BKFC needs because yeah, they have their divisions and they have their champions and they deserve the respect too, but like to those casual fans or hardcore MMA fans who they're trying to lure to BKFC, you kind of need those huge or massive feeling fights. And Mike Perry, we've talked about it before, he's really found his niche in bare knuckle. And Jeremy Stevens is another guy who, when you think of bare knuckle, that's a name that works. And he had success in BKFC before that fight anyway. So I thought that like that main event was perfect. The co-main event, you think about that. Jessica Borga getting her nose shattered by the misfit Christine Faria, and then also seeing Jimmy Rivera's final fight, that was really cool. We saw a guy fight with an ankle monitor. That was kind of funny. That was kind of crazy under his sock. So where I was sitting, I got to like I could definitely see the fights really well, but like the ring from where I'm sitting is kind of like up. So I'm looking up at the fights, but they're still really close. But where I had the best view of was the walkouts because the runway for the walkouts was like right next to where the media was sitting. So like not only did I see the ankle brace, but then like even just Conor McGregor walking out with the two belts, the King and Queen of Violence belts, and then also like I said, Mike Perry walking out, Seven Nation Army was crazy. It was just a crazy event, in and out of the ring. Like you said, the hype for it was insane. David Feldman did a really good job of getting people excited for it. Bringing in Conor McGregor to really be like boots on the ground like that. That fan experience was awesome. And then, to have the fight night deliver in the way that it did. Literally every single one of those fights were spectacular. And from what I gather and from what I've seen since, seems to be like that's every BKFC event as they bring wars. So I can't wait to cover them again because I know we will. I know we have some very specific plans that hopefully work out. But yeah, in case either way, watch that vlog. That's for sure because the BKFC 82 vlog was really fun, and I agree with you. That was a really awesome event, and I'm glad you picked it for event of the year. And that kind of like brings us into just our favorite moments of 2025 anyway. And I think for both of us, BKFC 82 is on there just because, kind of like you said, it's part of what we got into this for, being able to like cover fights like that in person, having these chances. Obviously a huge milestone for the channel, getting to ask Conor McGregor a question at the press conference. That was a crazy thing. And then from that, being able to swing an interview with David Feldman because of just how crazy that was after McGregor and Mike Perry started arguing. And then, like I said, the fights themselves were just nuts. But then, like, I don't know, even besides that, for the channel, I guess, there's that's the big one that sticks out for me. But then, besides that, there's the live podcast, obviously, too. That was an insane thing at Knucklehead Vintage. We did a pod for the UFC London card, Fight Companion. And then, we had that awesome live stream later that night, as we can get into in a little bit. But then just, to take it away from us for a second, some of my favorite things just to watch were like certain fighters kind of really turning themselves into superstars and, almost like we were talking about for Breakout Fighter of the Year. A lot of people who broke through that glass ceiling, but I don't even mean it in terms of skill. I mean it in terms of stardom. Like, I mean, dude, for Marab to become as popular as he did in 2025, Kayla Harrison getting the biggest win of her career in 2025, Alex Pereira, avenging his loss versus Big Onk. And then besides that, for me, one fight that just stuck out for the old fan in me, Dustin Poirier versus Max Holloway 3, Poirier's retirement fight. I mean, it doesn't fit any of the categories for like the awards that we have, but that whole event really just felt like a big thank you to Dustin Poirier, and it's nice to see somebody who did it the right way get rewarded with an event literally centered around him in his state. And like I said, we're in an era right now where it's very popular to just talk a lot of trash and then not get in the cage and back it up. Guys like Dustin Poirier, they're not really coming around anymore. So for the UFC to show all that love to Dustin Poirier like they did for his final fight and to treat him like the superstar that he is and always deserved to be, that was awesome. And for me, like that was almost like the end of an MMA era that like I'm really gonna miss when it's completely gone because it's not totally gone yet. But there's obviously a lot more fighters nowadays who aren't really approaching it the same way, I guess, to put it lightly. Because I want to stick with the positives for this podcast. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess those are my favorite memories of the year. I know yours are probably pretty similar as well. But I mean, we can get into any of them. We didn't have to talk too much about the live show, but
yeah, we could just easily talk about the live show. It was it was an awesome idea. Just a great collaborator with Aiden and Matt, at their shop at Knucklehead Vintage, and yeah, it was just a cool setting. I thought
Jason with the live
people
music
we talked
was cool.
to, yeah, Jason's performance. It just it brought out just a lot of good content as a whole but just good individual pieces of content as well that shows what our channel and what me and you are all about, just in general as people. And it's just, yeah, that's the kind of stuff we want to start doing more in the new year. Just the just being outside more, doing more just interactive stuff with other people, and
A lot of filmmaking,
yeah,
more,
filmmaking,
hopefully
yeah.
another live show in 2026, to be determined, obviously.
Yeah, so it would
I also want to say, too, like, for the live show, and I think we haven't really talked about this part of it much on the podcast, but, like, nobody besides the people who were there from, like, the fight companion on, like, in the shop, nobody really got to see, like, all that went into that, like, in terms of the planning. Like, we were planning that out for, like, 2-3 months. The idea was around way before we started, like, actually planning the logistics of it. And so, like, the plan, honestly, like, it went completely according to plan, minus maybe like one or two things, but you expect something to go wrong. And then you got Jimmy too, like, one man production team that whole time. And for two entertaining live streams like that, it was just, to me, like, I'm just proud of that because, that was really, it's not like, let me put it like this, like, I'm really proud of the BKFC stuff, being able to, like, have a media credential sitting here now, and, like, hopefully many more in the future. But that's, like, going to be always the first one. But besides that, like, BKFC, that's not, like, our event, you know what I mean? And for us to kind of plan something from nothing and then have a cool little thing like that in our hometown, at Knucklehead Vintage with Aiden and Matt there, and, a bunch of our friends, that was a really cool thing. And for it to go the way that it did, and it was blast, man. Like, I definitely want to do that more often and dive more into the filmmaking stuff. And I feel like a lot of our coolest memories from this channel have been some of the filmmaking and more intricate stuff that we've gotten to do. But, yeah, 2025 is a good year. It's always been trending upwards. There's always something interesting for us to talk about at the end of the year. Last year we got to talk a lot about Combat FC and going to Boston. This year we're talking about literally getting to talk to Conor McGregor, covering BKFC's official media, live shows. Like, who knows what 2026 is going to be like, man, because I didn't know that 2025 was going to be quite like this. But a good year for THH, and it was an interesting year just in fighting in general. And I think with that, we should probably move on to the two biggest awards, which are picks for Fight of the Year, and then we're going to have a little conversation about Fighter of the Year and hopefully come to a conclusion by the end of it. But so my Fight of the Year, and I guess I'll spoil it. So we both actually agree
yeah,
on Fight of
I
the Year.
went chalk on this one, everyone. I went chalk on this one. But
Could
how
you
could
really
you
pick
not?
any other fight besides Joshua Van versus Brandon Royval for Fight of the Year? I mean, could you really? I guess
No,
there's
no,
Murad versus Jan, but
not
who
this
else?
year. Not this year. There ain't a debate like that.
There were a lot of fun fights, but there weren't many fights that stuck out quite like Van versus Royval. And, like, we're covering this every week. We watch all of the fights
Because you think
intently,
about,
but
and then you gotta factor in the stakes, right? Like how I personally made these picks with like an eye towards the future and what their 2026 might look like. Like Van's already the champion, so and obviously being Ravel in that stage and that kind of fight,
if
he
he doesn't
doesn't.
take that fight, we're
Yeah,
in a different place right now. That's for sure.
yeah,
Because he took the fight on, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks' notice, and
yeah.
that's
So
fighting the top contender at your weight class at that time.
it's good that we can agree on that, but hey, let us know. Let us know, maybe even some boxing matches that could hold its candle to this award.
Ben Eubank, that was a good fight
Yeah,
earlier. I think that was early this year. Um, that would be another one. But for me, like, when I was watching all these fights this year, as we do, like, to cover them for the podcast, I gotta say, like, Van versus Royval was the main UFC fight that truly just had me completely locked in, not thinking about anything else for those 15 minutes because those two guys just went to battle in there. And that was a really crazy fight. And, really altered the MMA timeline, like I said, because Joshua Van is champion now, and that wouldn't have even happened if he didn't take this fight. So just absolutely insane, and like I said, altered the course of history in MMA. So it's good that we both agree on that one, because I don't know if there really would be another pick.
Yeah. So
not in MMA at least.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and then so we'll use it to leap into Fighter of the Year.
What's up, guys? Sorry to interrupt the podcast real quick, but we have a message for you guys.
If you enjoy her Hamburg's content, you want to see more, consider subscribing to the channel, leaving a like on the videos, all sorts of fight content as much as possible, podcasts, interviews, vlogs. We have it all over here, so thank you, appreciate it.
We appreciate you, and like he said, please subscribe, and now back to the show.
And in which case we're gonna see where the conversation takes us.
Yeah.
Because it's a fascinating one.
So
sure.
Can I start with like what I've been like texting you, and then kind of like we'll go from there, I guess. So when we were obviously like we try and prepare for these as much as possible. We're not just talking on a whim. But so we were kind of going through some of the picks that we had for this, and the one that we really just couldn't pick a clear answer for was Fighter of the Year, because you think about last year. Last year we picked Alex Pereira, and it was pretty obvious because he has just had a crazy run that year. But for 2025, like you would think that Merab would have been the clear pick, but then he ends the year on a loss. Pereira is another guy who's a contender, but he had a loss early.
Full disclosure, I still think Merab is the clear cut.
No.
Pick.
Can't lose. You can't lose and be Fighter of the Year. It's not. That's not an option.
I'm not picking him as the Fighter of the Year. I'm just saying I still think he's the front runner.
Okay, all right. Well, I mean, I don't though. I just don't think you can lose a fight and then say you're Fighter of the Year. He lost his belt in 2025. Like that's what he leaves the year with. I don't like. If he would have won that fight versus Piotr Jan, this wouldn't even be a conversation. But the fact that he lost it. It sucks because he won 3 fights, but he lost his belt. Like
think about in all these fights this year. Think about all the records he set and history he set out to go. To
okay, but what's his ranking? It's not champion anymore.
He's not the champ, but does that also have to mean so we'll say Josh Van. That would be a fair pick, but. When you think of Josh Van, you think about how he won the title and how that fight went, and then that also leaves a kind of anticlimactic sort of tone in the conversation, because that's like, okay, well, now we're just gonna wait to see who he fights next, and if he beats them, like handily without an injury happening. I think there's context that needs to be sprinkled in to the majority of this conversation and some of these picks. And so what I'm saying here is, despite the way it ended, right? Because let's think about it. Like let's say Merab still fights as many times as he did this year, and however he doesn't end the year with losing the belt. Let's say he lost the belt. Like in the middle. So let's say he fought at 2 or 3 title defenses.
Well, let's say he won the first one, loses the belt in the second, then wins 2 more fights. Let's just say that.
Yeah, exactly. We can say it like that. How are you ranking Merab?
He'd be further up than he is now. But losing the title is the worst thing that could happen. I don't care how many fights he could have won a fight. Actually, no, it's not. I was going to say, he could have won a fight every month and lost the title, and I still wouldn't pick him, which would still be true on principle. But I don't think... I'm trying to, like, weigh it out. I say to myself, what matters more, 3 title defenses or losing the belt? I think losing the belt matters more. You lost your championship. You can't be Fighter of the Year if you lose your championship and don't get it back. Like, and I get that he lost this fight in December, but like he took the fight. You could argue that he shouldn't have taken it. Maybe he would have done better against Piotr Jan in like February, but he took the fight, and he went 3-1. Because I get, trust me, like I get your argument, but for me, it's the the biggest point that you have to stand in the way of is like the first few words of it. You say, "Well, let's say." You're saying, "Well, let's say." Well, that's not what happened. He won 3 fights and lost the belt in the last one, and he still like that's what happened. Like you could bring up however many hypotheticals as you want. He still lost the title. So it's like, yeah, sure, if he would have done what you said, maybe I'd be more likely to pick him. But I just think that no matter what, if you're losing the title, that's the most significant thing that happened that year versus winning 3 fights. That doesn't take away from his legacy at all. I'm just talking about specifically for Fighter of the Year. I don't think you can lose your championship and not get it back and then win Fighter of the Year. So that's just me. Like that's a principle argument. Like that has nothing to do with me not thinking that Merab is an awesome fighter, which he is. It's not has anything. It doesn't have anything to do with me, with him being like the greatest bantamweight of all time, which I think that this year he proved that he is, even despite that loss. But fighter of the year, it's weird. Like that's just the way that I view it. Like I just don't think that someone can be fighter of the year if they lose their title and don't get it back. Like, but for my like, so I'll say this. Like, I'm sure everybody's probably thinking, well, all right, well, who the hell do you have then? And my pick is Chase Hooper. No. But, shout out Chase Hooper though. He's the man. But genuinely, the two that stuck in my mind initially, actually three because you kind of put the third one in my mind. But one of my picks, I'll say the one that immediately stuck out to me that was my like impulse pick when we first talked about it was Terrence Crawford, and it was for all of the same reasons that I kind of brought up in the event of the year topic. Just because of all the pressure going into that fight for him to win it, going up 2 weight classes against a legend. Yeah, he only had one fight in 2025. It's kind of hard to beat that level of a fight though. Like that one win really means a lot because it took him from a champion and a top pound for pound fighter to a legend that no one's ever going to forget. And I think that matters. And then if you want to go back to MMA, Islam Makhachev went 2-0 this year, 2 championship wins in 2 different weight classes. That's got to matter. Valentina, I still give Valentina a lot of credit. 2 title defenses in 1 year.
Well, of course, yeah. You already. Yeah,
that's because of you. I didn't even think of her right away.
My stance on why she's a valid pick as well has already been made, so I won't do all that again. But, hell, if she wasn't the consensus pick, then I wouldn't hate it. But she does need to be in consideration, without a doubt. Like
now, I think she deserves to be considered more than Merab because she didn't lose.
I'm okay with that.
That's just how I feel.
I'm personally okay with that. But if you said other specific names, like, well, okay, no, I won't. I'm not gonna say Islam because Islam also made history in his own right, winning that welterweight belt. But there's still certain names that if you mention that, like, oh, they went 2-0 this year, Merab would still have a better case than them.
I mean, but we're not talking about those guys. Like if we're comparing him to Valentina and Islam, because again, this is just for fighter of the year. This isn't disrespect to him or like anything he's done. Like, but specifically for fighter of the year, again, that's my own opinion. Like, you guys are more than welcome to disagree with me, but
no. So look, we know that our pick's not gonna be Merab, but while I will continue to play on the fence of defending why he still has a case, so I think of Alex Pereira last year, and he went on a run like we'd never seen before, just with and the press, like just the media, just overall fan popularity and success inside the octagon.
Chom.
Undisputed.
Chom. Enough said. Chom.
But you got to think about how much the activity plays its role into that. Listen, when we talk about the fighter of the year, it's just not everyone's going to be Conor McGregor where they only need that one big super fight to win and they could easily be considered the pick for the year. So look, we could even. That's why Terrence Crawford also gets like Terrence Crawford's even retired now, but that's Terrence Crawford makes his case because that super fight finally happened that he was against the odds for, and he came out on top. And not everyone's there. Not everyone's there. Not everyone's going to be there. And some people just need time, like a lot more time. Like that's just something that happens with time. You have to already be like established to earn that kind of thing. So when you talk about, we'll talk about Islam for instance, who also went 2-0 in the year. Um, and then he did what he did with the by winning the welterweight belt. You kind of think of it. It's something you think about like, well, it's more or less like, well, did would we have it's just one of those things like, damn, it's like we saw a little more like he won the title, but there's still just like another gear for Islam to go to, especially now that he's in the welterweight division. And like
Well, that's
that's
kind of why
kind
it's not
of
cut and dry.
how it sets for me is like, if there's still like going into next year and beyond, if it's still like, if there's still a conversation surrounded to be had. So Marab's case, Marab's conversation would be, can he get the bantamweight title back, which is a genuine question. With just between Peter Yan and his current form and this the rest of the division being as worthy and capable as it is. That's all his question is, because before he lost the title, he's already made the claim for the greatest bantamweight of all time, and that happened all in this year, and that happened by just just record setting activity and um, pace and output in the octagon during the fight itself. It's one of those things that, because in the once again, because that all happened this year, it's one of those things where it's like, hey, we might not ever see another Marab again. You know what I mean? Someone like someone who is willing to put their title on the line that many times in one year and come out and and win four of those defenses.
Well, three or four fights.
Three or
Yeah,
four fights, yeah.
he went for the fourth
Yeah.
versus Jan,
And
which
win
would have
three of
been
them.
insane if he would have won that fight. But my argument with that, it all steal from the 1996 Chicago Bulls. Don't mean a thing without the ring, man. He lost the belt in that last fight, and I think that negates it for fighter of the year. Not for legacy, nothing like that, but specifically for, I guess, the meaningless THH Fighter of the Year award. It takes him out. I'm sure Marav is at home devastated with my opinion. I'm sure he's thinking a lot about it. But like, for me though, like if I'm not picking Marab, and I believe me, like I agree with you, you at least have to have the conversation. I'm not saying he's not in the conversation. I just don't think you can pick him because he lost. So, and I feel like we both kind of agree on that one at least, even if like you think he's probably more in the conversation than I do.
Yeah.
But if you want to go with like the three that it seems like the three people who were kind of like agreeing are up the top echelon would be Islam Makhachev, Terrence Crawford, and Valentina Shevchenko. And like there's arguments for all three because Terrence Crawford again gets the biggest win of his career versus a legend going up 2 weight classes, but he only had one fight, so you could argue like the inactivity matters, but that one piece of activity is kind of like,
that's what I was saying
yeah,
before.
you're right, and that does matter, and that's honestly what made him stick out to me in the first place. Then you think about Islam Makhachev. I think with him, and it's similar with Valentina, but Valentina is in a bit more of a difficult spot, and I'll explain why. Like Islam Makhachev, I think if he would have finished Jack Della Maddalena in the way that he was finishing fighters at lightweight, I think Islam would probably be the clear pick because he would have a finish at 55 in January and then a finish at 170 in November. But that second fight, a lot of fans weren't really happy about it. Again, I don't agree with that because I think that dominating somebody to that level is impressive in itself. You know, kind of like I mentioned with Valentina. And that's the same argument with Valentina, though. You know, she won 2 fights, but people weren't really too excited about either of those wins, even though they should be praising her for how dominant the performances
Yeah,
were. They're not doing
yeah.
that.
There's a caveat to all of it, and which is like even you can think of for last year, like that wasn't the case,
Yeah, like we had
obviously.
clear picks. Like
Yeah,
it was,
so
and I remember last year it was weird because we had two picks that neither of them would have been wrong, wasn't it? We had Alex Pereira, and then we were also talking about Ilya at that point, and we were like, you can't really say either of those picks are bad,
yeah,
like because they both did a lot. But this year it's like everybody has that one thing that you can kind of take away from them, and I don't mean like, I guess I mean take away from them again in terms of this argument, but. I don't know, man. All right, you know what? We've laid it out. I'm just gonna ask you point blank. Don't think about it. Besides what we just talked about. Who's your fighter of the year?
Terrence Crawford.
Terrence Crawford. I didn't think it was gonna be that easy at the end of it. We had like a heated debate just to agree on the end of it.
Because I just think,
That win was gigantic, man.
yes,
You can't.
yes. Well, look, when I mentioned about hey, not everyone can just have that one fight, and hey, you're in the conversation if you won, if they win. Um, look, these people have to do a whole lot to get to that point and get that kind of treatment in the first place. Like like I've mentioned before, like the legit Conor McGregor tier of fighter. That one fight that everybody will be watching.
I call it the
And the
elevator.
one fight that's going to truly stamp who you will leave that ring or octagon as when you decide to finally hang it up, like Terrence Crawford has. And so there was nothing to. He left no stone unturned. There was nothing left in that ring to go back for after that kind of performance against that caliber of fighter, and with the odds stacked against him having to go up. So that's just look, that's why context and the narrative is so major and important when we have this conversation, because you tie everything up in a nice little pretty bow, and you get Terrence Crawford, who retires as and as I don't even like you could Terrence Crawford could be a without a doubt is probably a top 10 boxer of all time, if not.
He's one of the best of this generation. That's
Yeah,
for sure, if not the best.
and the boxer of a generation, and that was established this year, and that's the kind of material it makes to just be the fighter of the year pretty much.
I mean, you know why I also picked Terrence Crawford as fighter of the year over Islam Makhachev and Valentina Shevchenko? Throughout this whole conversation, these things kept coming up. The only knock that you can really have on Terrence Crawford's year is the inactivity. But we just talked about how that Canelo fight kind of wipes away that whole argument.
Yeah, I mean, when you're training for Canelo and you're moving up to Canelo and you're fighting for those belts, like that. Yeah, you would think like, this is probably gonna take like, this all his year is gonna be tailored and focused towards, and that's it. Like, how is he gonna have another fight this year when he's gonna move up to fight Canelo and give, and yet another super fight that we had been waiting and hoping for, but weren't sure if we would actually get, and then it happened. So,
I mean, like, I agree with you, but that, like, I'm also not going in that direction with it. Like, my point of view is that, like, Terrence Crawford is fighter of the year because, he had all that pressure coming into that one fight. He has that one fight, dominates Canelo, who's a legend. But then, the only knock that you could have on him is that inactivity. But is that really a bad thing, as you just kind of laid out? But then also the knocks that we kind of have against Islam and Valentina's cases are in the cage performances. So, like, to me, if you're taking all of those caveats that we talked about, I'd rather have the inactivity caveat than the in cage performance ones. You know what I mean? Like, because at the end of the day, Terrence Crawford, the only thing bad that you could say about his year is that he didn't fight enough. But yeah, the one fight that he had happened to be Canelo and was a legacy-defining performance. But the other two, you could argue that their performances weren't on that fighter of the year level, and I think that that's kind of where Terrence Crawford takes it over
Yeah.
Islam and Valentina. So
Yeah.
I'm glad we kind of
That's all she
ended up
wrote.
agreeing on that one. But yeah, that's all she wrote. That's a good way to end it because that's really is all she wrote in 2025. It's the end of another year in combat sports,
Yeah.
and
The end of a wacky year in combat sport.
that's for sure.
Straight wacky in terms, like really more in terms of uh, politics or kind of stuff outside of the ring and the cage. But also, also during the fights themselves, and um, we beat the drum to death about the eye pokes and what am I? The eye pokes and the
Nut
referee
shots.
stoppages. Yeah, the stoppages, the nut shots, and
It's been weird.
stuff that we don't want to see anymore at all going
Yeah.
into the new year. So,
I mean, things are gonna happen, but I think with every year you get the great moments, the bad moments, and the weird ones. That's for sure in combat sports. And it's funny when you think about it too. This
yeah,
year didn't end with a UFC event. It ended with Jake Paul getting knocked out by Anthony Joshua, and also Tony Ferguson getting a knockout win in Misfit Boxing.
yeah.
And
So
he's now on a winning streak, not a losing streak. So shout out Tony Ferguson.
we closed this year. We closed the chapter on the for the UFC and their ESPN era, and now we go into an era not only for UFC but just for all combat sports where like you had to be able to finish fights before, but now the way things are going, like hey, like yeah, you need to have that. You have to have something that stands out about you when you step into that when you step through those ropes or that cage door and you're standing across from your opponent. You got to have the it factor pretty much of why people are gonna tune in and stuff. Like fighters like you guys just got better like that. So you look at Marab, like who would ever thought you already said yourself you didn't think Marab would be one of those names you're hearing from people who don't really watch.
Well, with
Um,
all the people who shit on grappling, that's what I'm saying. You never really
and
would think a
that
guy
too.
like that
But
would.
Marab is just he's very obviously has one hell of a personality. He's out and about all the time. Like so Pereira last year as well was out and about interacting with just the fans and just to just yeah, just like just an easy guy to market. You gotta be easy to market pretty much. Someone that the company wants to market and push
We're living
and
in a
make the face.
content factory
Yeah,
now, aren't we?
exactly.
For better or for worse.
So like as much as I hope that doesn't obviously
It is a little
the
bit.
intricacies of mixed martial arts and boxing, I will never want that to fade away. Hopefully nobody sacrifices the little things about what makes a champion to just be more entertaining and want people to not give them shit even if they win. Cause it happened with a lot of UFC fighters this year. I mean, obviously you saw this year was the year of the grappler. Like just
Yeah.
no doubt. And fans will never hesitate to just shit all over it. And that was
Are they
no
really
different.
fans though? Like that's. I guess that's a whole other conversation. But it's like, are you really a fan if
Well,
you're
I mean,
not,
if you want to take, I'm not
like
taking
if
this
a
so
fight's
much in the
boring, that's one thing. If you say it's boring, that's fine. But it's like if you're disrespecting the person who just dominated someone for 25 minutes on the ground, then you should just find another sport. Like
yeah.
that's like not liking, or that's like being a soccer fan and not enjoying kicking. Like you know what I mean? It's you can't just take away the part of the sport that you don't like.
Yeah.
Okay? So it's part of it nonetheless, and like I said, it's turned into a bit of a content factory out there with the UFC, especially now Paddy Pimblett's getting a title shot after beating guys on like a combined 900 fight losing streak.
Yeah,
But
man.
that's just the way it is nowadays. But I hope it doesn't trend further in that direction, at least not for people who don't deserve it.
Yeah.
But, we're going to see what happens. Like I said, it's a content farm
I
out
think
there.
it was just. I think this was more of a. So for UFC in particular, and I mean, as much as I want to say MMA as a whole, it's just the other promotions like they're still not holding a candle to UFC at all, and which
Need
sucks,
competition.
but
Just
exactly.
need it.
So for UFC in particular, this was knowing that they would be moving on to a different era in the upcoming year. This is kind of just like a weird influx year to where like just all the fights we knew, all the fights we were gonna getting and hope and expecting to see this year. And that was that. We didn't have like that true that fight announcement that everybody was really chomping at the bit to get in.
Not in the
here.
UFC, at least.
Yeah.
Like I said, boxing did it.
Boxing did it.
But not the UFC this year,
Yeah,
in my
exactly,
opinion.
exactly.
At least.
So-
They had some good fights. Not like they didn't have good fights.
Yeah.
But
So I mean, and fitting enough that our fight of the year is a boxer. So
yeah, this is the year of boxing. God, the boxing fans, they might not hate us as much after this one.
Yeah.
This is the most love we've given boxing in a minute.
yeah,
But hey, man, 2025 is an insane year. I mean, like I said, for the fights themselves, but even just for the channel, just a lot of crazy milestones. And I think we're going to have even more in 2026. And I mean that both ways, for awesome fights and then also just awesome moments on the channel, that's for sure. And we're going to keep working hard and trying to bring you guys some fun content. So thank you guys for supporting us this much this year, and on to bigger and better things in 2026. And our next video will be previewing some things to look out for in 2026 for the combat sports landscape. So until then, happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, all that, and soon to be Happy New Year, and we will see y'all in 2026.
Feel just like a superstar. Doing all these drugs, I don't think I'm gonna see tomorrow. Living fast, brand new dash up in a foreign car. It's the type of shit that you be doing when you gone.
Show me that you got me, and baby, I'm big about it.